The meeting of City Council for Monday, July 15th back to order. Next order of business is 2.3. We have Lee Bedell, General Manager from Brocor Construction Limited in attendance regarding extension of municipal services. So welcome, Lee. You just got to hit the button on that mic there and then I'll turn it on. And, good morning and welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having time to see us today. Yeah. And I think the council should do the wheelchair challenge every year. It sounded pretty interesting. So
yeah. You should join us. It was good. So.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks again. Like Darcy said, I'm Lee Bedell with General Manager for Brocor Construction. Westmeyer couldn't be here today, so I'm filling in for him. I think he sent the letter off and everyone's got to see your letter. He sent that off last week. So I'll just give kind of a brief kind of history and run down the letter. So when we first developed the property, I don't know, 20 years ago, we did a cost share, or we did a road upgrade in trade for the water service. And along with that road upgrade, it was, proper ditches, proper structure, drainage improvements, and a water line down the DGR, so eventually the city could tie into Chilton subdivision if they wanted to. And that was all done in early 2000 in exchange for the water service. So at this point, we're now moving our business, I guess, to the to the west. We're building a new shop there, and then we want to we're asking for another water service. And then in exchange for that, we would upgrade the rest of the water treatment road up to the fence or the gate for the water treatment plant. That would have proper drainage, proper ditches, MOT structure, and we want to do all that work in exchange for another water service to our building. So, there's some current issues that happen every winter with the way the road is now. I think with the discharge of the water from the water treatment plant, it, floods the ditches, floods the road. Then I know the city spends quite a bit of resources and time fixing that throughout the winter, kind of depending on freeze thaw, whatnot. So along with the upgrades, we would then build a retainage pond for that water to be used for other future projects and future stuff on our land. So that would then take that out of the equation for you guys to manage. So then all the drainage and everything would be upgraded. Would be safer, dust would go down, and it would be quite usable for the future. With doing all this, there would be no cost to the city. Brocor would put in do the road, do the water and sewer, do the servicing, or not the sewer, sorry, just the water. So no cost to the city, just an upgraded road and use of the water service. So that's kind of the rundown of what we want to do. Any questions?
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Lee. I'll open it up to council first for questions, and Councillor Parslow.
Well, this seems like another win-win for everybody if this happens. Just want to make sure that my facts are correct here. You say as a paragraph that begins, we're also proposing additional works in partnership with the City of Dawson Creek to eliminate the continual water issues that the city, ministry, and Argo are having to deal with every winter. Additional works would include construction of a dugout on private land to contain 150% of the water plant's yearly discharge, etc. That is land owned by Westmeyer, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other questions? I had a couple. One, just want to thank you, Lee, for coming in and, just a great letter, and definitely it looks like a win-win. We did talk a little bit before, but just on time frame. So I know that building is already, it's up already, so it's well under construction. So is this something that you're wanting to get into the water and underground stuff sooner than later?
Sooner would be better for sure, because we are, the building's up, the tin's up, and we're in temporary office space right now, but we want to be in there in November.
Okay.
So a bit sooner than later is better for us, but we don't want to put undue pressure, but
yeah. No, I just figured I'd ask that because I think there's we were talking, this brings up some opportunity, right, that we could look at for future uses, but our next council meeting's not till August, so it would just be,
ideally you'd want to do all the water servicing and all that first and then build the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So August is a bit late, but.
Yeah. Then the main road into where the new spot will be for Brocor, do you follow the same road up on the water treatment road? And then it will just turn
Yeah,
off?
we'd have an access on to the water treatment road, yeah.
Just right before the gates, kind of?
Yeah, probably about halfway up.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Any other questions? Kevin, does the city need any, like you're pretty clear, there's no questions on your side?
Yeah, through your worship, I think it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Okay, well, thanks, Lee. Our processes is later on in the agenda under mayor's updates. We will bring this back and then we'll talk about it then
Okay.
and make a decision, and then we'll let Brocor know, so.
All right, thank
Yeah,
you.
you bet, thank you, thanks for
for your
coming in.
time. Yeah.
All right, our next order of business is 2024 strategic priorities. I'm just going to go to 3.3 as there's a report number 24-093 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding 2024 strategic priorities action plan quarter 2. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship.
Councillor
Thank you, Worship. I'll move the recommendation that report number 24-093 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding 2024 Strategic Priorities Action Plan Quarter 2, which provides Council with an update on the staff action plan for Quarter 2 in 2024, be received for information.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald, any discussion on receiving for information? Did you have anything, Councillor Earl?
No, I mean, if something jogs our memory in the CAO update, receiving this for information doesn't preclude us asking Kevin for
Yeah.
it, does it?
No, and still underneath this category, we can
Okay,
yeah,
good.
ask for updates. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Parslow?
Yes, just about the asset inventory and condition assessment. It's moved to quarter 3, no other updates since quarter 1. Correct me if I'm wrong here, wasn't that work contracted out? So what is causing the delay?
So a couple of things, and I might get Melissa to just clarify, but so you're correct, through your worship, contracted work, finalizing the asset inventory and the information. We're currently working with the consultant to come up and present to council. They're also doing work for the regional district. So we're just coordinating so we can save some expenses on, they're going to come up and do both. As far as the actual, I guess, the extension of time, do you have anything, Melissa, that might just clarify that?
Through your worship to Councillor Parslow, we're just in the finishing stages. The last stage is taking a little bit longer than originally thought, but we are aiming to have a draft here within the next week, which just allows staff time to review. And then we bumped that just knowing with the meeting, scheduling that and coordinating that.
My reason for asking is that very soon budget preparation will begin. I'm sure it's ongoing all the time, but you know what I mean. We will have some budget deliberations, and I'm concerned that will you have the information at hand for use for discussion by council around funding the capital asset plan?
So through your worship, yes, we will have data in hand. It is going to take time and probably years to be able to get to that point that it is funded, but we'll have preliminary data on the picture of what it should be funded.
As a side comment, I don't think it ever can be fully funded, but thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. All right, any other discussion? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Was there any other comments on the 2024 strategic priorities for Kevin and team? Nope. All right. Next, 4 late items. I don't think there's any late items. 5, new councillor business. Councillor Parslow.
I'm raising a difficult topic here. Council is often, criticised unfairly, unjustifiably. One of them is that we do a lot of business in camera. That is not true. In my opinion, this council and past councils is a high level of care about what is placed in camera. So I just want to raise without getting specific for obvious reasons, there are two topics that we're going to be talking about in camera that contain elements why they should be in camera, but there's a large part of it that I'm suggesting could be done in open. And the question is, how do we navigate that conundrum whereby we are vigilant not to compromise council by talking about things that are, let's say, labour relations or something like that, or contractual, but at the same time, other things that are reasonably the business of the public don't get discussed in open because they are tied to something else. And I'm just raising that because it is my opinion, and I did get some feedback about this, about why one of the topics was in camera, and fully understand that. But I'm just saying, and I not want to put our corporate officer in a position here, but is there one thing in a casual discussion we just had, is it possible sometimes to split a report? This part is in camera, this part is in open. But I just would like us to, I do think the way the city operates is exemplary. But it just strikes me that in this particular case, where there's a good deal of public interest in one topic at least, large parts of that discussion could occur sometime in open. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. I don't know if you wanted to. Oh,
Thank you, Councillor Parslow, for bringing up that concern, and I will take that into consideration when drafting future reports to closed meetings, and if there are issues regarding closed sensitive topics and open topics that are closely intertwined, we'll take note of your suggestion. Thank you.
thanks, Deb. Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other new councillor business? All right. Next order of business 6, adoption of minutes. 6.1 minutes of the annual regular meeting of council held on June 24th, 2024 for adoption. Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Earl. I'll call that motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Any business arising? Oh, all right. Next, 8 correspondence. 8.1, we have a letter from Brad Sperling, Chair, Peace River Regional District. Received on June 5th, 2024 regarding a request for a letter of support, Interprovincial Mutual Aid Agreement. So I guess, Kevin, just before this goes to the floor, did you have an update, like a little bit more details on what this is?
Sure, yes, through your worship. Just for clarity, we did reach out to the regional district just to make sure we were understanding correct. So what they're looking for, or maybe what the issues have been in the past, is if there is wildfires right on the border, either side, there has been historically some issues about being able to support each other between Saddle Hills and the regional district just because of the provincial boundaries, to the point where to be able to get that assistance, they've had to go, right to the minister and get a ministerial order to do so. So what they're trying to do here is get support from the region and try and get ahead of it and see if they're able to establish a framework that if there's issues in the future, they're able to work collectively together. My concern was just understanding what the commitment or obligations are, specifically from our fire department, and looking into that, there doesn't appear to be any. It simply, it comes down to our choice. If there is an issue, if there's an opportunity to assist, we can. If we're unable to, that's okay too. So I think from my perspective, I'm comfortable with this. I don't see us being put in a spot that we can't operate within. So,
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship. I'll move that we endorse or provide our own letter, attest, of similar content with respect to an inter-jurisdictional approach to emergency management.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Councillor Earl. Do I have a second? Councillor Sednick. Any discussion?
I guess to note, it's hopefully bureaucracy doesn't get in the way of a good idea. Obviously, we have jurisdictions and we respect that, but I know whether you're talking about healthcare is obviously a big one. I know I've talked to many seniors who need support services, whether it's cancer, post-op treatment or care or cardiovascular stuff that can only be accessed through Prince George, and they have to go every month. That's a pretty hard drive for anybody really, but especially somebody who's getting up there in years. So if they can make a straight shot to Grand Prairie, that would be appreciated. I don't know if that would be included in this, but obviously I think there's a lot of sense in looking for how we can better cooperate along the border and similarly with our RCMP, we know our location as a border community is exploited by prolific offenders who are engaged in property crime as a means of frustrating our efforts. And certainly when I did a ride along with the RCMP years and years ago, the case they were working during our ride along had to do with an instance of cross-border larceny and criminal activity, and seeing firsthand the amount of needless, and maybe they're not needless, but it appeared for me that it was largely arbitrary bureaucracy that was frustrating their efforts to cooperate, not practical considerations. So hopefully the province takes heed and we can get a better result for the residents here, because it makes sense. Even, yes, we are British Columbia and Saddle Hills is Alberta, but they come here for groceries, they come here for their kids' school, they come here for work. So to have that hard and fast line, or even last year when the evacuations were taking place, many people who had family just across the border they could go stay with wanted to do that, only to find out that the emergency social service benefits wouldn't be applicable to them if they were across the border. That seems like a needlessly foolish thing to have happen. So hopefully the province takes that into consideration.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Councillor Parslow.
Well, I appreciate what Councillor Earl has said, and having friends who've suffered a lot from the journey to Prince George. I can give you lots of details about that, but that's so I appreciate that's been raised. My question is just simply the appropriateness of the phrase in the last paragraph. It begins, in preparation of the 2024 wildfire season. We're into shouldn't that be in preparation of the 2025 wildfire season, or amended slightly because we're already in it? We're not preparing for it. So, some comments?
So through your worship, I think the regional district was coming at it from wanting to get it as soon as possible. This was a follow-up from a March 6th meeting at the regional district. And so at that point, you probably would have been looking forward to the summer of 24 still. So I think that's where it comes from.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other questions? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 8.2, we have a letter from Connie Patterson, President, Dawson Creek Exhibition Association, received on July 8th, 2024, regarding a request for a letter of authorization for liquor license for the 2024 exhibition in Stampede. Councillor Parslow.
I would like to move that we grant the required letter and in support of this event.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Sudnick. Any discussion? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 8.3, we have a letter from Judy Greenaway, NCLGA President, North Central Local Government Association, received on July 10th, 2024, regarding the 2024-25 NCLGA membership renewal letter and invoice. Councillor Parslow.
I would like to move that we pay this invoice.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Kemp. Any discussion? I have one question. Do we offhand, I should ask this prior to Melissa, but do we have offhand what we paid for NCLGA membership in 2023?
To your worship, sorry, I'd have to get that information for you and at a later date. I don't have that on hand.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for bringing it up last minute. I just thought of something, so thank you. All right, any other discussion? All right. Yeah, I don't think you. Tab, does Councillor McDonald have a conflict here because he's a director on the NCLGA or no? No, okay. Thank you. All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried.
So through your worship, I was just looking at the letter again there, and it does mention that, the calculation reflects any population changes, which in our case, that's not going to change anything, and a 2% membership fee increase. So it appears it's just a 2% increase.
Okay. The reason why I was asking is the Peace River Regional District chose to rejoin their membership on the NCLGA board. So I think that was to impact financial contributions of all those municipalities that sit on that board. So I was just curious to what the difference was.
Yeah,
so.
even though there was a 2% increase.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. Even though there was the 2% increase, those continuing memberships actually dropped a little bit because the PRID did come back. So there was an increase, but there was a decrease at the same time. It became a very convoluted equation this year because of that.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. All right. Next order of business is 9 reports. 9.1, we have report number 24-010 from the General Manager of Community Services regarding the Dawson Creek Curling Club lease. Councillor Sudnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation report number 24-010 from the General Manager of Community Services regarding the Dawson Creek Curling Club lease be received. Further, the council authorized staff to enter into an amended and restated facility management lease agreement with the Dawson Creek Curling Club for the curling facility for a 5-year term ending May 31st, 2029, with an option to renew for an additional 5-year term.
Thank you, Councillor Sudnick. Do I have a second? Councillor Apollonio. Discussion. Councillor Parslow.
So the issue that was hot and heavy at the time of the existing lease, which this renewal would replace, was around wording around insuring ice. So how have you managed to navigate that to protect the city from what was perceived to be a liability, because if there was a mechanical breakdown, we don't have any alternatives. So how have they suddenly, have you waved your magic wand to solve this? I'd like to know. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ryan.
Thank you. Through your worship to Councillor Parslow. Several conversations, lots of listening and hearing. At the end of the day, there's a couple aspects of it. The language that was originally put in was muddy. It wasn't really clear in some areas. So we, as part of the new lease agreement, we've hopefully it makes a further clarity on that. We've identified a force majeure clause within the document that talks about if there's a mechanical breakdown due to for unforeseen reasons, etc. So by adding that aspect in, it satisfied both aspects of both parties in terms of perhaps the, I don't want to use the word the arbitrariness of just sort of shutting or the lack of refrigeration being delivered. At the end of the day, the staff, our staff, the ice plant is in the Memorial Arena. It's managed by our team, etc. So the delivery of that refrigeration really relies on us, not by the curling club at all. And so that's, we just really cleared up the language and added the further clarity and provided that force majeure clause within it. And we, and this has gone to the curling club for their review, and they're in acceptance and agreement with the lease agreement, as you see here. And that's back to you for your review and approval.
So it's just supplement to that. So I think we'll be discussing a force majeure clause in another contract we have at some future date.
Sure.
But it's clear, is it, that there's, in the minds of the curling club, there's no financial liability to the city should there be a breakdown beyond the reasonable control. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow.
Thank you for getting that agreement.
Councillor Earl?
My question was in a similar vein to Councillor Parslow. I knew there was some, the last negotiation had some tension because of the particular issue. It wasn't necessarily a breakdown, a mechanical failure. I think at the time it was if the council of the day, and it was with an eye towards not tying the hands of future councils, made a political decision or a budget, because the budget, whatever, they're not doing ice, if I recall correctly, and Kevin can, he's nodding, so I'll take that as a yes. But yeah, that was, we were worried that the language in the lease agreement would effectively undermine the ability of future councils to make political decisions around funding ice time in the city. Does this document maintain their ability to do that? Once again, the point we all made was it wouldn't be in our political interest to do it, except as a last resort in some unforeseen circumstances. But we were in the middle of COVID, so you have an appreciation for unforeseen circumstances in the moment, and I think that was what was driving some of it. Has that been addressed, or where did we land on that?
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Do you want to?
So through your worship, I think that was part of the discussions that we had with the club, and I think as we go back, there was both parties were getting hung up on some words and maybe not the intent, and I think that's maybe where we had some issues, and so we were able to reestablish the relationship. And as Ryan indicated, it took a number of meetings and a lot of time, and I think really just understanding that both parties, what value each bring to the partnership, and really that it is a true partnership. As you indicated, they deliver a great service, and it's not a service that we necessarily want to take on ourselves. And so, and through those, you're able to have the discussion that council has to have the ability. They get to choose what services are delivered in the community. That is fundamentally your purpose, and so you can't, you can't hamstring this council or future councils to say, oh no, you have to deliver this service. So, that is, but as we were able to work through some of these things and understandings and build a relationship, that became much easier for everybody to understand and appreciate. So yes, we were able to deal with that.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Councillor Ellen Parslow. And that was one of the questions I had. And I guess just for the rest of council, these questions have originated prior to this council. We dealt with this lease a couple of years ago, so would have been before us. That's where the comments are from. But I know one thing, Kevin, when those negotiations went on, the curling rink or the curling club side was the way the wording was. I can't remember if it was BC Curling or Canadian Curling, or their insurance wouldn't allow them to apply for bigger events because of that guarantee. So does this, the way it's wording now, has that been submitted to those organizations, and is it going to allow them for approval to apply for some of these bigger curling events? Do you know that, Ryan?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, so the assurance of providing ice within an ice season and or subsequent years in terms of the bid process of some of these events is critical. And so where the hang up is that delivery of the ice, right? And so now that there is reassurance or clarity within the lease agreement about the delivery of refrigeration managed by us to it, it provides reassurance to the club for their ability to go out and then now bid on Alberta or BC or national curling events. So the clarity provides them more opportunity to go out and go after other events.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Well, just a question to staff here then. This is what I've heard. That should a future council be faced with a major drop in its revenue, for instance, the cancellation in 2 or 3 years of the fair share money or the Peace River Accord, we still have the right to maybe to curtail the city's involvement in support of curling in the community? Is that what you're saying we do?
Yeah, through your worship, council has to make decisions based on the funding they have available to do so. No service, you can't be forced into a service that you can't afford. So you have the ability to do that. Now, I caveat that with, you do have to provide clean drinking water and, wastewater, but we're talking more specifically about services that can come and go, that are not a necessity for, the health and well-being of a community.
The only reason I'm raising that is we know that there are certain services which could be delivered in a different way, that we are fettered from exploring that because of past agreements by councils. And I don't want to get into specifics about that, but I just want to make sure we retain the right to manage what is optional.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Any other discussion? Did you need to? Oh.
Perhaps just for further clarity is that the lease agreement, this one, and I would believe in all the other ones, but this one specifically speaks to that council does have the right, if they wanted to, have early terminate the contract upon 1 year's notice, right? So that you do have the ability within the lease agreement, if for whatever reason, to terminate without cause.
Thank you, Ryan. All right, any other discussion? I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed, and it's carried. All right, next we have 9.2, report number 24-044 from the Development Service Manager regarding downtown revitalization. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I'd like to move the report number 24-044 from the Development Services Manager regarding downtown revitalization be received. Further, the council directs staff to develop the Downtown Incentives Action Plan, which includes the following. 1, pop-up business initiative. 2, enhanced facade improvement program. 3, demolition grant. 4, revitalization tax exemption or rebate program. 5, municipal fee rebate program.
Do I have a second? Councillor Earl, discussion? Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you to staff for the report. Looks like you've put in quite a bit of thought to this. So of the 5 components of the incentive action plan before us here, I think the ones that could probably be acted upon most immediately would be the revitalization and fee rebate, simply because that's foregoing revenue for economic activity that would otherwise not happen if we strike the right quarter or strike the right balance. The other 3 are require a direct subsidy, and while I'm in favor of exploring it, I think that is going to be a bit of a minefield to navigate with respect to how we do that fairly and in a way, we're going to have, irrespective of and I'm speaking hypothetically here, if the 3 initiatives that require some sort of subsidy move forward, there's going to be a finite amount of money available to allocate in any given year. So whether we do it through a reserve we contribute to or what have you, trying to keep politics out of it as much as possible. I don't want us to end up in a position where the perception is we're directly subsidizing some businesses but not others. And how do you, it has an element of the permissive tax exemption where it's very easy for it to become bloated and just a huge piece of work for staff and a massive headache for council. I'm in favor of pursuing it and seeing what it looks, but as we put together the plan, I would just strongly urge staff to be mindful of that, is how do we as elected officials and how do we as a municipal government allocate these resources in a way that is fair and transparent and isn't going to be perceived as politicians playing favorites, because that's something we definitely want to avoid.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Councillor Parslow.
Yes, I have real concerns about this package. I appreciate the work that's gone into it, and I'm mindful of the fact that if we proceed, there's going to be a considerable amount of more work. And we're doing this in a way that I just don't care for. I'm always mindful of the words that when I was at a meeting with Kevin Falcon years ago, he was then Minister of Finance, and he stated that we need data-driven decision making. Now, I do know that there's going to be a need for a lot of data here, and that takes a lot of work. And I'm wondering how this council thinks that it can increase its operating budget with all that we know, and we know the work to be done, And all I saw in here was flashpoints for increased expenditure to the operating budget. That really concerns me. I've tried to get some information from my contacts in some other municipalities that were cited as having done this. In spite of asking, these are people who are friends. They couldn't recall if there's any data to say that this has worked. And I'd rather us, through staff, I'd like to see some data that says these have been the economic impacts in such and such a community, northern small towns, where there's an impact. Because I hate staff to go to a lot of work, and then we say, well, yeah, that's great, but we can't afford to do this. And so I'm not going to vote in favor of this. There's a statement here on page 6 of 9. And the first sentence ends, and is based on what has worked well in other communities. Show me the data. How has it worked? How has the economic vibrancy of those communities' downtowns been enhanced? And how has that helped the community as a whole? Or is it just a subsidy to the business community, the downtown business community? So I would plead that we get some solid data before we burden our staff with pursuing this work any further. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Other discussion? I have a bit. I will go. Yeah, it's tough, right? When you put in all 5 of those initiatives, I think, our downtown and, we all see it, that it needs some help and assistance. And if we continue to do the same thing every day, we're not getting any different results. So we need to think outside the box and look at different things. And if it means sometimes spending a little bit that could generate some back, you got to look at those areas and look at all of it. Some of this, I don't know, it's challenging, right? You look at the facade, an enhanced facade improvement program. I look at the facade program we have now, and it's successful. I don't know why. Personally, I don't think I'd be in favor of looking at enhancing it. It's the first year that it's been successful. It hasn't been successful up till now. So if it's working, let's go. There's going to be some significant changes and enhancements to some business downtown because of the facade program. Demolition grant. It's tough, right? We don't have a lot of extra revenue to be putting at some of this, but the revitalization tax exemption wouldn't really be a direct cost to us. It's something that Melissa brought forward at a committee of the whole, and we went through it. I think council was on board with looking at that, and not just for downtown, for the whole community as a whole. So that was one that would kind of concern me in here. Just talked about downtown. Some of the other, I think the report's great, and this isn't with, the respect to Bill and his team for putting this together. These comments aren't against that. I just, I look at all the report, and I don't see anywhere in there that we engaged any business community members downtown or anybody downtown on part of this. And I know it was kind of put up, I'm assuming it was a third party that brought some of this together. So I think there's, downtown revitalization is part of our strategic priorities and looking at that. And I know we've had some discussion. So some of this I feel like is maybe putting a little bit, I don't know what that saying is, putting the cart before the horse. I feel like there's some avenues here we need to look at, but it feels like some of this is maybe a little early before we've had some of those discussions. Yeah, and I mean, there's some challenges downtown too, right? And I know this report isn't about some of those challenges, but yeah, it's tough, right? There's definitely things in here that I support, but as far as like putting more funding in to enhance the facade program or a demolition grant or a pop-up business initiative, I agree with Councillor Earl. Like, I don't know how much more time I'm in favor of like wasting the team's time, Kevin, to keep going through with this. Because this is a very broad report. Like, there's some things that I think are great, and I think, from what I've heard so far, that's too. So I don't know like what the next steps would be on yours, if it's bringing it back to a committee of the whole. And I know we had Melissa present on the tax exemption part in a committee of the whole. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so through your worship, this, I mean, we've been working on this for a couple of years now. And we received an initial grant to do some of this work. Correct me if I'm wrong, Devin, but we have engaged downtown businesses. We've
Okay.
got collected data, but it's because it's been a bit of time. We've reported out. We have done that work. I hear what council's saying, and I mean, this is why this comes in front of you, because it's an opportunity, it's a checkpoint. Council needs to make decisions. I don't want to go down a road that council doesn't want to go down. These are options that were brought forward that our team has seen as alternatives or options in other communities. And every community is going to be different. Even if it works good in one community, there's no guarantee it's going to work well here. I can't assure council of that. But if there is some here within this report that you say, I'm absolutely not interested in pursuing, then great, let us know. If there's none, that's great too. Or if there's only some you'd like us to pursue, like Councillor Earl mentioned, really the ones that speak to foregone revenue options. Let us know. We can narrow the focus. We can finalize that. Council had provided a letter of support for this grant that we applied on. We got the money. Good news. Council always wants us to take advantage of grants, and we're being successful on that. So that's a good news story. But let's focus in on what council wants. We'll go away, finalize that, and bring it back again for council to review. We're not going to implement anything from any direction we get here today. It's going to be finalize and bring back. So.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for clarifying that too, Kevin, about the engagement. So I guess at this point right now, like, so say, for example, Councillor Earl's comments about 4 and 5 being something that he sees moving forward, would that be, if that's the way council felt and this motion was defeated, then would there be another motion, or what? Like, is that what you're kind of anticipating, that we go through each one of these individually and set some direction, or? Okay.
Through your worship, for clarification, you were thinking that perhaps not to move forward with all 5 of the incentives and just some for this year under the grant and some perhaps for later?
Yeah.
We can amend the motion
Okay.
to indicate that number
To
4 and
remove.
5 are a priority for 2024, 2025, if that's what council wishes.
Okay. Thank you, Tab. I get just one other thing too on number 4, how it's got the revitalization tax exemption. Is there not another motion that's been directed to? I know Melissa's looked into one for the broader part of the community, not just downtown. So if that wasn't in here, say, is that still something that's moving forward, or is this the?
Yeah, so through your worship, it's generalized here, it's fine.
Okay.
Even though this is downtown incentives, we wanted to make sure that this was inclusive. I didn't want a separate incentive item to kind of be hanging out there when we're talking about incentives. If we move forward with the revitalization tax exemption, it'll still come in front of council. And as far as determining the scope of it and whether it's specific to downtown or specific to the entire community or specific to a particular zoning, those are all things that need to be worked out yet. And, we'll bring that in front of council, and council will have that opportunity to provide further direction on that if they don't like what they see.
Okay. Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Tab. Councillor Earl?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so just to kind of circle back around then, I do like the corporate officer's wording about 4 and 5 being priorities. While 1 through 3, as I said, I'm much more apprehensive about, I do think with less of a sense of urgency, it might be worth fleshing those out if for no other reason than we don't know what kind of matching grant opportunities will materialize in the future around, specifically to demolition that may eventually include environmental remediation, which is going to be an increasing issue in rural Canada. And at some point, federal and provincial governments are going to have to get their act together and pony up some money to address it. So it would be nice to have an understanding of what that looks like. Same with pop-up business initiatives. I can foresee an instance where there are grants available either through, Community Futures that does funding for startups, a whole mess of ways to shoehorn that into a grant so that to minimize the actual direct cost to us as a community. So while I certainly wouldn't regard it with the same urgency as the numbers 4 and 5, which, as I said, we're essentially foregoing revenue for economic activity that otherwise wouldn't occur. So there's not a hard cost to us at that time. There could potentially be a way for the first 3 to be done that don't cost a boatload of money. So it'd be good to have some information, and if it could be data-driven, that would be ideal, as Councillor Parslow noted, in place so that should the opportunity arise, we're able to act on it in an expeditious fashion. So I can try my hand at amending the motion, if you'd be amenable to that, or would you rather have more discussion before we decide what we'd like our amendment to be?
No, I just think after hearing more of what you were just saying, how that those could be a priority, but the other 3 would be in there. I was just going to ask Kevin, if that was the general feel for council, would we need to amend it? Because I think, after hearing Councillor Earl speak more to that, it would make sense if there was, to go down those avenues if there was a grant out there. I wasn't thinking of that side,
Yeah.
so.
So through your worship, again, the opportunity is we have a grant to fund the work to flush these programs out. And again, that will come back to council at some point. What I'm hearing is, and probably rightfully so, is the issue is the implementation of the program when it becomes, hard costs. And so obviously, that's where you can still have an understanding, if council wishes, to flush these out, understand what it could look like, but then really only act on it if you were able to leverage some grant funding that became available. That can be worked into these programs, you work through it. So, if that's it, then you could carry on with the existing motion and do it. This is not, again, forcing you to do anything with them. It's getting more information and then another checkpoint for council before you actually move forward to implement.
Yeah, I think that clarifies a lot for me. I don't know if if that's the case, I'm happy to not amend it and let the motion stand, but I see Councillor Parslow has a comment, so we can carry on. Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Earl. Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Parslow.
The grant that you're referencing is being used to hire consultants?
Through your worship, yes. The consultants that we've been working with throughout this, we would continue to work with them and finalize this work.
Yeah. I guess, a lot of what I say is flavored from past history. Things get presented, and it's basically a belief system. All I'm pleading for is some solid data. Your time, staff's time, is valuable. And so I think we have to apply some common sense to this. And what is sustainable? If we're going to be working at our city's financial sustainability, then we need to avoid increases as much as we can to our operating budget. I have no objection. I appreciate comments that have been made by other people I am not vehemently against items 4 and 5 either. The others, yeah, because it's flagged increase to the operating budget. All I plead for is show me the data where this has worked in similar communities that are facing the same challenge. Let's analyze that before we go any further. And that's why I'm against this motion at this time. But I am not, I have no indigestion over 4 and 5, just so other council members know that. But I do believe that the collective staff's time is important. Our operating budget challenges are very, very important. Helping our downtown be revitalized is important. And we have maybe different definitions of revitalizing what our downtown. But if something has worked somewhere else, let's find out what worked. There's been so many empty statements, that we all know about. How the downtown was going to be revitalized with spending $18 million on a cultural center, as an example. So before we go down any roads, let's have some good data. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Worship. I just wanted to throw in, all good points brought up by everyone here, but one of the solid data points we do have, especially in the last 18 months, is how many businesses we have watched leave our downtown core. And we've talked about this being a strategic priority for us. We need to do something to help protect our downtown and the remaining businesses that are down there. I think this is a good start point where we can, I agree, points 4 and 5 are the strongest there, but little outside the box thinking with the first 3 are also good as well. And I think this is something we do definitely need to pursue to ensure that we are doing everything we can to help our downtown.
Thanks, Councillor McDonald. Thank you, everyone, for all the dialogue. I feel like it was good, and I'm definitely, I feel like we should move forward personally, but I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. 2 were opposed, Councillor Apollonio and Councillor Parslow. Next, 9.3, we have report number 24-080 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding flag policy amendment. Councillor Sudnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation report number 24-080 from the Deputy Corporate Officer regarding flag policy amendment be received. Further, that Council adopt the amended flag policy, allowing the Philippine flag to be flown on the date of the first Council meeting to take place each June.
Thank you, Councillor Sudnick. Second, Councillor Kemp. Any discussion? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. I'm just going to call a short recess here. Next order of business was 9.4. We had report number 24-082 from the General Manager of Operations regarding RFP 2024-23 CODC Airport Fuel Station Replacement. Councillor Parslow.
Move report number 24-082 from the General Manager of Operations re RFP 2024-23 CODC Airport Fuel Station Replacement be received. Further, Council award RFP 2024-23 CODC Airport Fuel Station Replacement to Aviation Ground Fueling Technologies for $267,524.05, excluding applicable taxes.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Do we have a second? Councillor Earl. Discussion. Go ahead.
There's a wide gap in the bids. One is 800, one's $250,000 about. So whenever that happens, always ask, are you sure that what checks have you done on the successful low bidder here, or potentially successful low bidder.
Yeah, so through your worship, that certainly for us, same flags jump up. I mean,
Yeah.
it's quite a large discrepancy. So following up, I asked those same questions, and the low bid certainly is this is the work that they do, and so we're confident in that.
Okay.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Same question. Yeah. I did too. I asked it on Friday, so thank you. I guess one thing too, maybe just to those that are listening and just to the public, I mean, they might see this and why we would invest in, this type of service at our airport. But just to put it out there, when I got the tour actually, to see actually what's out there, but this is like an enhancement to the fuel sales that we have at the airport, and you could tell that team there is very passionate about thinking outside the box and how to be creative on how they can generate more revenue, and this was definitely an avenue that will help out there. So, and I believe too, Kevin, like the fuel sales out there are like a big part of the airport as well, right? So yeah. Just thought I would share that. So, Councillor Parslow.
I think, but it's also important to stress that the existing system it was hard getting parts for replacement and all that stuff.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other discussion? No. I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed and it's carried. Next, 9.5, we have report number 24-083 from the Financial Service Manager regarding 2024 property tax collection. Councillor Sudnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation report number 24-083 from the Financial Services Manager regarding 2024 property tax collection, which provides council with an update on the property tax revenues collected as of July 2nd, 2024, be received for information.
Thank you, Councillor Sudnick. Second, Councillor Apollonio. Kevin, did you want to add something?
So through your worship, I know I had a couple of questions just as last week, just when the agenda came out, just on some information about the differences in the collection and maybe where, some of those differences lie. So I know Melissa's got a little bit of information, so just for your information.
Yeah, I think it would be great to hear. We had some dialogue last week just around out of the shortfall is business, residential, and all that. So Melissa put together. So yeah, if you want to go ahead, Melissa.
So through your worship, in looking at the breakdown, I really focused on Class 1 and Class 6, given that's where our majority of our assessment lies. And so you'll see the overall collected did reduce to 91.63% from 93.05 in 2023. So that is down a bit. It should be noted the collection in 2022 was 90.8. So it almost, it appears that 2023 we've had a high amount. And so we're dropping back down similar to 2022. And looking at the Class 1 and Class 6, Class 1, our residential, it's been fairly consistent that in 2022 we had 91%, and that carried forward into 2023. And actually in 2024, residential increased to 92% collected, where we've seen the decrease, which is causing the decrease overall from 2023 is in Class 6 and business. So in 2022, we were 92% collected. In 2023, that increased to 95, and we've seen that drop to 90% in 2024.
Thank you. Discussion on receiving for information. I guess we received it for information, but thanks for that extra information, Melissa. All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 9.6, we have report number 24-087 from the General Manager of Community Services regarding facility HVAC direct digital controls DDC. Kevin, do you want to just give a brief update on this before? I know it's
So through your worship, what we have here is a request for some additional funding to complete 2 HVAC projects that we have in the budget, but really some additional work within that. Originally were to be phased, one phase this year, another phase next year. The next year phase was going to be the DDC controls aspect of it. As we've got into the project and Ryan's got more familiar with it, it was determined that we need that DDC component now, and the DDC is really the controls aspect of the HVAC systems. We need that to be done at the same time, or we're going to have some issues within the 2 facilities with an inability to efficiently or maybe at all operate the HVACs like we had hoped. So.
Okay, and then in here it talks about taking the extra 450 out of reserves. So would that be the plan in the 2025 budget, because it was potentially going to be budgeted that 450 will go back into reserves?
Yeah, I mean that's certainly we can account for that. Of course, we will have more than enough projects that if we wanted to, spend that monies, but if, that'll be a decision we'll have to make throughout the budget process. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Councillor Parslow.
I'd like to move the recommendation that report number 24-087 from the General Manager of Community Services re Facilities HVAC Direct Digital Controls, DDC, be received. Further, Council approve 450,000 to supply and install a direct digital control system at the Memorial Arena and Airport Tower to be allocated from the General Capital Reserve. Further, the K&O Electric proceed under the terms and conditions of their existing City of Dawson Creek main electrical contract to initiate and complete the project.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald, any discussion? Okay. I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 9.7, we have report number 24-090 from the Deputy Fire Chief regarding Fire Department aerial tower ladder truck purchase. Councillor Parslow.
I'd like to move that report number 24-090 from the Deputy Fire Chief, re Fire Department aerial tower ladder truck purchase be received. Further, that Council authorize staff to enter into a purchase agreement with Commercial Emergency Equipment Corporation to build and deliver a Pierce Manufacturing 110-foot ascendant aerial tower ladder truck for up to $2.8 million plus applicable taxes under the following payment terms. 10% down payment with 30 days of a signed purchase agreement, chassis payment approximately 9 months from completion, estimated at $1 million, aerial payment approximately 6 months from the completion, estimated at $1 million. Further, Council authorized $500,000 to be allocated to the ladder truck reserve for the replacement of the existing truck operated by the Dawson Creek Fire Department for the 2026 and 2027 fiscal years.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Do I have a second? Councillor Earl, any discussion?
I have a few things. So I moved the motion because I know the need for this, but I do need some further information, I think, just so I have a complete comfort about this. So if I may, through staff, to Melissa here, we have been setting aside $600,000 from the old, we stopped funding the flood mitigation. So how much money is there in that account as of, let's say, at the moment, present time?
To your worship, to Councillor Parslow. So the allocation started in 2023 and it was $500,000 per year.
Okay.
And that was what was allocated to the flood mitigation program. And so for 2024, at the end of the year, there'll be $1 million.
$1 million, okay. So the part that then what is meant here, this is my understanding, correct me, Ron. The council authorizes $500,000 to be allocated to the ladder truck reserve for the replacement of the existing truck for the 2026-2027 fiscal years. So that's just saying continue to make that allocation that we have made. Why is the 2025 year omitted?
So through your worship to Councillor Parslow, there was a previous motion that was already passed that the reserve be for the 2023, 2024, and 2025 years. So that motion was already passed at the December 19th, 2022 council meeting. And so I just wanted this further funding to be included in the motion so that we had that confirmation, which would get us to the 2.5 million. And then when you consider interest, so that was the intent of that language.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Parslow. Thanks, Melissa. Any other discussion? No? All right, I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed, and it's carried. Thank you. Thanks, Todd. All right, next order of business 9.8. We have report number 24-091 from the Capital Project Manager regarding invitation to tender 2024-24 2024 trunk sewer cleaning program. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the recommendation that report number 24-091 from the Capital Projects Manager regarding invitation to tender 2024 trunk sewer cleaning program be received. Further, that Council award the invitation to tender 2024 trunk sewer cleaning program to Unijet Industrial for the tendered price of $304,232.25 plus applicable taxes.
Thank you, Councillor Earl. Well done. Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald. Any discussion? All right, I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 9.9, we have memo from Deputy Corporate Officer regarding Dawson Creek Ribfest Beverage Garden Permit for Northwest Spirit Rotary Club. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move the proposed motion that the letter of Tim Schild's Northwest Spirit Rotary Club, July 5th, 2024, regarding Dawson Creek Ribfest Beverage Garden Permit be received. Further, that Council approve the request and authorize the Northwest Spirit Rotary Club to operate a beverage garden for the Dawson Creek Ribfest to be held on July 26th to 28th, 2024 at the parking lot of the Dawson Creek Curling Rink.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Do I have a second? Councillor Sednick. I have one question just on this. I'm just wondering, we've had two requests like this today. How come they've just come in two separate parts of the agenda? Like what, one's under reports and one was under correspondence. Is there a reason for that?
Through your worship, it was for clarification purposes. So the Deputy Corporate Officer had drafted a report or a memo style report to provide council with a background of information as to why you're seeing a similar resolution. Earlier on, as council already provided a liquor license for this same event in a different name.
Oh, okay. Got you. Thank you. Any discussion? No? I'll call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business is 10 bylaws. 10.1 Municipal Ticket Information System Amendment Bylaw number 4586, 2024 for consideration of adoption. Councillor Sednick, second. Councillor Apollonio. I'll call this to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 10.2, we have Bylaw Notice Enforcement Amendment Bylaw number 4587, 2024 for consideration of adoption. Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Kempf. I will call this motion to vote.
Thumbs up, don't count, Charlie.
I'm rushing.
Yeah, no, we'll allow him to get his. Our elders, they need to get their steps in too.
97,000 in a day.
Yeah. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next order of business, 11, Mayor's Business, 11.1, Mayor's Updates. First one, Mayor's Open Door Project. So we had our first Open Door Project where we actually did it at City Hall at the office. So it was good, and I think moving forward, this is where we're going to do the next couple just to build some momentum. So I did have somebody come in, and it was good. It was a good start. So we had a group discussion with the team here, and we just figured we're going to continue to do them here and just try to build some momentum to have them here. So we'll continue to do that. National Indigenous Peoples Day was held at Northern Lights College. School district also did one as well, but I attended the Northern Lights College one. It was a great event. There was a lot of people there. It was a great turnout. It was great. There was music. There was some trade show style stuff set up. There was some vendors there. There was food. The college is they're a leader in a lot of areas. So it was just great to be part of and be part of the whole presentation. So it was great. Recruitment and Retention Committee meeting. We had another one a few weeks ago. I think, a couple weeks ago. But there's been a lot of, this is around recruitment and retention to doctors in the South Peace region. So there's myself, Councillor Sudnick are on the committee, and then the rest is pretty much medical staff or related. So I think there's 5 or 6 doctors that are on there too. So it's a very valuable committee because you get to hear directly from the current doctors what they believe is the need, and we're seeing some movement forward, which it's funny because when we're in those meetings, they talk about this as stuff that they've wanted to see for 5, 6, 7 years, but this is, for whatever reason, this committee that's put together there's some actions happening, so it's good. So, and it's opened up the dialogue. There's a doctor coming. The first one is coming September 1st, and it was just a good networking. They were looking for a place to rent and live while they're here, and through this committee we were able to brainstorm and find that. And there's been some other things too with children's and registering for schools and that. So there's lots of neat ideas that are coming out of it, and real ideas, right? It's lots of listening. So it's great. We're going to meet every month or so until we kind of get like the committee formed and really what the avenue is, and then it'll more than likely be quarterly meetings. We had the Pooskoopi Parade on Canada Day. Just a huge success. It was amazing. Thanks to council and our amazing team at the city. Somebody that's hiding behind the wall over there that does a lot, and here as well. So just a huge shout out to the team here to help preparing for that and for all of council that were there, and mostly all a huge shout out to all those kids that were there. It was there was a lot of handshaking and a lot of giving out candies, and Councillor Apollonio kept up to us this year, which surprised me a little bit, and everybody. It was great. So farmers market, I was able to go to the farmers market last Saturday and pick up a few things, but more so I just wanted to go and see them and just thank them for what they're doing. And it's pretty amazing to see the growth in that whole market industry, right? It's in times that we live today that are, there's a lot of stresses on families. You can see people that are getting creative and, thinking outside the box and different ways to do things. So it was really great to see. There was probably there had to be 20 plus vendors set up there all around from the region and the area. So it was just amazing to see. And April, who kind of organizes it and helps, she actually said there was a little less that week. So, but still, it was great to see. And even with the amount of construction we got going on at that facility and that property, it hasn't impacted it at all. She said it's still been really good. So that was good. Tumbler Ridge Medical Conference. So this was held in Tumbler Ridge. I think it was the 6th annual. So it's a medical conference for 3 days held in Tumbler Ridge. There was 70 medical professionals. 19 of them were resident doctors. So doctors that are just coming out and finishing their schooling, getting close to the end. So they were up here. So myself, Councillor Sudnick, and Councillor Apollonio attended Friday night and Saturday evening out there, and it was phenomenal. Actually, it was just to be at the ground level to communicate with those doctors and that networking. I believe, as well as the other conference that Councillor Sudnick and myself attended, that the value in going to these is invaluable. Like, it's really just that networking. We get to meet new doctors, potential ones for the region. I know there's one that's moving to this region that was there. But also just answer any questions, showcase the Peace Country, but also just to thank our doctors that we do have right now. It's easy to look at, our shortages and the negative impacts of that, but I think we also need to focus on the good parts of it too and embrace what we do have. And we have some leading doctors in the South Peace. Dr. Charles Helm and Dr. Magda Duplessis are a big part of that. It was neat to see some doctors that used to be here, a couple, but Dr. Bernowski, for one, I ran into him and I haven't seen him for 20 plus years. And he moved right after our second oldest was delivered, and he was our family doctor then. So it was just amazing to see him and catch up and just to show how strong the Peace roots are, and that it brings those doctors back, right, that haven't been here for 20 years. So yeah, it was just amazing. The networking, the whole part of it. I enjoyed my time with Councillor Sudnick on Friday, and Councillor Apollonio came up on Saturday. So I thank you both for taking the time out of your days to come up. And it was just amazing. Next, so just the vulnerable and unhoused population. We've had, basically since I've been sitting at this chair, and Kevin's been CAO, this has probably been at the top of our list on a lot of things that we've been dealing with. And it's just, there's been a lot that's been coming up lately. So we've had some conversations with a couple business owners downtown that are, impacted, and we're trying to look at solutions. Mini mall that's been, fairly impacted. So we're looking at, different things that we can do to help. We have a meeting planned later this month with myself, Kevin, staff, RCMP, Bylaw, and a few business owners downtown, and also some leaders from the Connective, my home place, just to really talk a bit about a bit of the challenges that some are facing, but also look at some solutions and just get everybody kind of at the table. So that's coming. We've also had, it seems like a little bit of a rise. And I was just bringing this up to bring everybody up to speed on what we've been dealing with. And it's probably the last couple of weeks has been probably 80% of my time on these topics, and also nuisance properties. So just properties that are, constantly being visited by Bylaw or by the RCMP, and we've just been getting a few more phone calls from residents. So we did look at, there's some nuisance bylaws that one other community has implemented. So Kevin is getting Bylaw to look into that to see if it's something that we can just look at. And, just for example, this would be a smaller one, but if somebody's Bylaws at a place 10 times a year for mowing lawns, because there's complaints, just something that could maybe add a little bit of weight to it. So maybe there's some more consequences that are learning. So just was renewing that, looking at different communities. There's also Smithers, and there's another community that have got creative and done some things to help with the vulnerable and homeless population. So we've also reached out to them just to really open up and learn what other communities are. And also I just really wanted to bring it to the attention of council and to the public. So if there is other ideas, please let us know. Smithers was brought up by Councillor McDonald, and Councillor Kempf brought that up. So we're looking into that. But just really to bring some awareness to it and what we've been working on. Next, I wanted to touch a little bit just on the Ken Bork Aquatic Center shutdown. So I know this is kind of more just out in the community and then for our knowledge. But we've always shut down for about a month in the fall, usually September for maintenance. And we know as we get to our asset management planning and look at that, we know that we need to look after our properties and reinvest in them to get the longest life out of them. And that's what we're doing with the pool this year. So the reason why it's closed for a couple months is that's the whole reason is we're not closing because we're trying to inconvenience people. It's about protecting our assets. So, Kevin can probably correct me if I'm wrong, but grouting is a major one that we're doing this year. So once the water's drained, we need to regrout that tile so that we can get the longest life out of that, the basin there. So that's the reason why we need to close longer this year is to get that done. And, I think we're seeing in other municipalities in regions that are trying to build facilities like this right now, that with the costs of building going up so high, it's almost getting to a point where you cannot do it. So I think it's, as a council and a city team, because it's not council to take credit for this or myself, it's the city team to look at these things so how we can protect our assets for the longest in our life. So a good job to the team. We just wanted to get the message out a little bit more because it is going to be closed for an extra month. The city team, there's no good time to do it, but they had worked, it's after the SEALs events. And there's, it's unfortunate, but it needs to happen to protect it. So, so I wanted to get that out. A couple late things that I added that I didn't put on here, I'll apologize for. Just, I went to the car show yesterday, so I just wanted to give a shout out to the car show and all those that were there. But also, while I was at the car show, I ran into the Texas Ride for Cancer students that are, there's 23 of them that are riding from Texas to Anchorage on pedal bikes. So they were on day 50 yesterday. They got 20 days left to get to Anchorage. And you want to talk about some inspiring individuals. All 23 of them attend a university or college in Texas. And they're all from there, all riding from Texas. So it's a 70-day ride. So it was phenomenal. It was really inspiring. They did this little round circle too and why they're riding. And it was very inspiring. But I also want to give a shout out to the Rotary Club of Dawson Creek because this organization got a hold of the Rotary Club, and the Rotary Club organized them to stay at the Northern Lights College gym facility the night before. They were so thankful for it. They were able to shower, get cleaned up. Rotary Club organized, I forget the gentleman that does bike repairs for the kids. He organized them to come down to the college and repaired all of their bikes. So it was just phenomenal. And then the ladies and guys that were riding were so blown away by the city of Dawson Creek. And I got probably 100 pictures with them on the Mile Zero post. So it was pretty amazing that they were, appreciative that I was there, but it was really just about, I was honored to be the mayor of the city, not because they were here, but because of all the kind people that touched them while they were here. And they said out of all the communities that they've been to, it was phenomenal, the welcome they got in the city of Dawson Creek. And to me, that's why I chose to put my name forward for mayor, is because of our community and who we are as a people. So it was a very proud moment. So that's why I added that one in. So, thank you. Councillor Parslow.
So the topics you've raised, one, I want to ask a question. It's to do with the pool, and I appreciate what you've said, and that aligns with what staff has said. As we all know, all communities, as a result of COVID, were faced with pool attendants, lifeguards. I do hope that we've established a regime now. I hope we're not. How are we looking after these lifeguards during this shutdown? Are we going to lose them? What are we doing proactively to retain them and they don't lose their income?
I think just before I hand it over to Ryan, I just wanted to say, in the couple of years that we've been sitting here, that's been a major priority, is getting lifeguards. And I think for the first time in I don't know how many years, but we were back to 7-day-a-week operations. So it's been successful what they're doing to to retain and recruit, so. But over to you, Ryan.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Parslow. So just because the pool's closed doesn't mean that the lifeguards and the staff aren't busy. So they will, as they do in every year, they do a much more deeper dive within the cleaning and maintaining of the facility. Ongoing training. We have the moving over of records management as well. So on the clerk side, that is I don't want to call it a Herculean effort, but just all the documents of the records management that has to happen. We are also working with the staff to maximize their vacation time during this period as well, and suggesting and working through that. So I feel confident that our process that we're going through with our staff to retain them through this shutdown will be positive. We also have conducted additional national lifeguard course this couple months ago, and I think we had 12 or 13 people go through. Of that, we hired 4 of them. The others weren't of age yet to come on board, but when they are of age, which will be this fall, our intention would be looking to help them gain employment at the pool as well, to increase and bolster our lifeguarding efforts and activities.
If I can just continue with that, I did know that if I can call it the core staff, the regular staff, they were gainfully engaged with whatever. But my concern is the casual lifeguards. I'm putting this in quotations. The reputation is that they get treated differently, and that was our main problem, like the hours and lost income and all that stuff. So they're going to be, because we don't, as the mayor directly said, we're in a position, a desirable position now, and I'd hate this extended, justified shutdown not to push us back. That's the main point of the question.
There's no intention for us not to offer hours or to make sure that our staff aren't, whether they're full-time or part-time or casual, not to move this forward. There's more than enough items to be done in training and not just and recertification of their certifications. So I don't necessarily think that we're not putting any impediments forward to not keep these people employed and the hours, etc., by any means.
Good, thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Councillor Parslow.
Just a question around the vulnerable people.
Yeah.
You talked, and I may have misheard, right? I appreciate the problems faced by the business community, but a number of people in the last little while have been talking about, these are people who live close to downtown, residents, and the theft, the vandalism, etc., that they're suffering as well. It isn't just the business community, it's also residents, theft, harassment. So I just want to make sure you're aware of that as well.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's, it's over the last couple of years, I've had numerous conversations in regards to all. I met with a resident homeowner that lives in the general vicinity of downtown that moved here 4 years ago. So this was one just about, getting those together. But there's a lot of dialogue and we're open to looking at any kind of solutions or help for all. So, thank you.
So the last thing under Mayor's business that you didn't raise, but I mean, we had a council get together around working on the different priorities and who was going to take leads, right?
Yeah.
So is that being communicated to the general public? And are the people who put their names forward expected to self-initiate activities to keep these things moving forward? I mean, I just think is there a communication piece needed so that people are aware of who's doing what?
Well, I think I'm open to anything. I mean, really, the end of the day, like having that list done up was really about, you know, as things are getting brought up or brought to the office or brought up, that if somebody's passionate about something, then I could start to work with that individual or a couple. But I think that works both ways. Like if, you know, yourself and another counselor is passionate about something like you were about arts and culture and you brought it to me. And so I think that communication piece would be, the way I see it, is just between us.
Okay.
Moving forward, but I'm also open to like if other ideas, right? Like I don't, you know, if you see a better way of working those or a better way to communicate, yeah, I'm totally open to have those conversations on. Yeah. Is that?
No, that's fine. I just think, you know, so often it's just like the strategic priorities, right? Where we have an action plan, and I'm very comfortable with what's going on there. So now, let's say there's three of us said, well, we find this revitalization of downtown to be something that interests us, so we have three of us, right? So now I'm thinking to myself, so we've got that, now what? And is it up to the three of us to somehow we could staff also? I mean, as we just dealt with the report, staff are working on it as well. How do we make sure that we're not duplicating each other's efforts? And how are we coordinate? I don't expect resolution now. I'm just mulling my thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I think you're open to any ideas on how we can get more accomplished in the next 2 years, right? But I think one of the reasons why we kind of did it was, for example, the Tumbler Ridge Medical Conference. Myself and Councillor Sudnick went up the Friday, and Councillor Apollonio also put his name down for healthcare.
Sure.
So I was able to like look at that list, and instead of reaching out to every councillor, Kathy or EA was able to just reach Councillor Apollonio to see if he wanted to attend.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I think as it progresses, I think if there's, for example, the downtown revitalization, if the three of you wanted to get together, I would assume the first part of that meeting would be with the three of you, myself and Kevin, just to see where there is areas where we could help. Yeah. Any other questions or comments on any of the updates? No. All right. Next, 11.2, we have the Fraser Basin Council request for a letter of support. Councillor Earl.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll move that we provide said letter of support.
Do I have a second? Councillor McDonald, any discussion? No, I did see on their presentation, I think Dawson Creek contributes, was it 3,800 a year annually? 2,800? Okay, that just comes out of the emergency.
Yeah, through your worship, that comes out of our operational budgets. And you can see the work we've done over the last few years. There's some really good pieces in there. And most recently was the water scarcity report. So it's been a good framework and a good partnership.
Yeah, obviously value.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, any other discussion on this? No? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Next, 11.3, we had Lee Bedell presenting this morning on behalf of West Mayor, the extension of municipal services. So I guess, Kevin, a couple of things. So one, if this is something we see the value in moving forward, is it just as simple of a direction as that? The other is we've had some discussion about this, but just being that they're outside of the city boundary, maybe would be a second motion, but to look at like how we could offer this to people outside, and that it would be at rural rates, not at
Equitable.
Municipal rates. So
Yeah.
maybe just a little direction on both those.
Sure. So through your worship, yeah, I've been thinking about that. So one, the request from Brocor, I think there's equity there. They're looking at providing some upgrades for us and dealing with some of our drainage issues and all of that. So I think that's very defendable, from your perspective. for them to have access to potable water, at least for a period of time. The second part is as we've talked about this internally, is that we have a few historical properties around the edges of the city that have, city water, but live in the rural area. And they come from primarily times in probably the 70s and the 80s and when they were connected. Subsequently, there was a policy that is now in place that came in the early 2000s. I believe that sits there and basically says that unless you're agree to come into city limits, you don't get city services. So there's a couple pieces here. I think one, like I said, I think council could approve the request. I think that would be fair. Number two, I'm thinking direct staff to come back with maybe an updated policy or regarding that could encapsulate a number of pieces regarding whether they need to come into city limits or if you're outside of city limits, maybe a different fee, water fee structure for that and look at that. I think that's maybe the two pieces there.
Okay. Yeah, because we were kind of just discussing about if somebody wanted the water service and they're willing to pay the water line, and we could charge rural rates because they're not in city boundaries. That's just a way to increase revenue to our utility, which could help, right? So.
Yeah, the intent of the policy that's in place was just to create equity between someone paying city taxes and fees and infrastructure charges as opposed to somebody outside. So really the way the structure, our current water rate structure exists is if you're in town, you pay one fee. And if you're out of town, someone that hauls their own water, they pay a higher fee, but that's to cover that you don't pay infrastructure charges and those pieces. So I think there's a model there that exists that I think we could utilize for any of these historical, and plus if we wanted to visit any ones in the future.
Yeah, because back in the day, there was generally probably only one water rate too, right?
There was,
Yeah.
and it was just somebody wanted it and they're willing to run a line. Oh, sure, yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
I think that was probably how it was looked at.
So if we were to honor this letter and request it, could we request it at rural water rates, or would they have to follow the current policy bylaw on the water rates until we've revisited that?
So I think the first thing is you could grant the request. In my mind, you could grant the request subsequent to them, doing the work that they've intended or that they've presented and said they're willing to do. So in conjunction with that, and then my mind would be that should they not come into the city within a period of 5 years, if something doesn't change so they don't come into the city, then they would be required to pay the new rate structure, because I'm thinking we will come back with a policy amendment and
Can we just require, if we were to give them municipal water right now, that we can say that it's at rural rates?
we don't have a rule, well,
Because I see it
Yeah.
potentially being two different ways. One, that it could be new development or new people that are added in, and you could look at grandfathering those that are in. So then if you allow them and we grandfather
yeah.
them.
So I think if you want to do that, then the motion would be that they'd pay bulk water rates.
Okay. Okay.
Because that is essentially the rate that, Puscoopi pays, because they're outside the city limits and they're a customer. And to bring equity, I think that's the rate that would make sense. So any
Okay.
rural properties that are connected would
Okay.
look to
Thank
do
you.
that.
I guess I should have had some motions on the floor before we were discussing all that. So I will open it up for a motion here. And we can get to discussion. Councillor Parslow?
You want a motion?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. I should have. asked
Oh, I'm
for
not
one.
giving you a motion.
Okay.
Can we just have one question before we?
I don't know.
I just didn't allow Councillor Parslow to ask a question, so. Would somebody like to? What's that, sorry? I'll make a motion that we grant, the request from Brocor, and we work with them on putting municipal water services in there at, what did you call it? At the bulk water rates. Have a second? Councillor Earl. Discussion. Councillor Parslow.
So right now, the original Brocor building is now owned by Nodes. Are they receiving water at the bulk water rate?
So through your worship, yeah, no, they're not. Currently, they, at the time, when they built the shop, they applied to the city for water. We had the policy that said you needed to agree to come into city limits. They said, okay, we're good with that. They applied. We went through the process. We went to the ministry. The ministry turned them down because of the configuration. They didn't like it.
No.
But the council and administration of the day said, fine, you had agreed to come into city limits, so we're carrying on. And so that's why that one has it. Now, they were paying just the in-town rate and still are. But that goes back to what I was saying is I think we have some of those historical ones around the community, not a bunch, but there's a few that we would need to revisit to make sure, if we're going to move this motion where this new connection was at the bulk water rate, then I think we need to revisit that and look at any of those ones that are outside city limits to ensure they're paying the same and it's a more equitable rate.
So with the mayor's motion, we're going to have neighbours paying different water rates until something gets resolved, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I guess that's a little, yeah.
I'm just sitting here rocking my chair, meditating
No.
on the problem.
No, I believe that we need to look at it and potentially change that. I just think if you, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they're not inside city limits. They don't pay residential, city taxes directly. They're in the regional district. So they don't pay for the infrastructure on the water utility like rural residents that haul water. They pay it. It's built into their pricing. So I feel moving forward that if we're going to offer this, that it should be at those rates because then it's fair for what everything else. It's just, I guess, do we approve this without or not? I guess I don't know if it's going to get approved or not yet. But.
So through your worship, I mean, a couple of things. One is they're also at the table asking. So this is your opportunity to make that change. Yes, it creates an imbalance between their neighbor, but it also, staff will obviously be looking at that probably in the short term to correct. And we'll look to see if we, in fact, need to make a bylaw change, or if we can simply, with notice, just make the change to the rate for all the subsequent rural users of city water, so that they're all paying the same. I just can't say right at this second whether I can unilaterally do that without notice and stuff. I'd want to make sure that we do it correctly, but.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Well, again, this is, discussions flow and one can't be prepared for what people might ask. But again, I just is it possible to put some solid data on the table here? What are we talking about in dollar difference? Between
the two rates?
One resident, the former Brocor thing paying city rates versus a Brocor's new place of business paying bulk. What is it? Is it $1,000 a year difference?
Oh,
or?
yeah. So I can pull up the rates.
I mean, it may not be a material difference.
Yeah. I don't have their account information in front of me, obviously.
No.
I just know that, your in-town rate's probably about half of what your bulk water rate is, and without having those numbers in front of me.
And that's per cube, right?
Well, I think, too, it just makes sense that we look at it because, I mean, you look at, like, Poos, for example, we charge them that rural rate because they're outside of our city limits. So to me, it makes sense that if we do it and are going to open this up and offer it to others, that it's at that rate. Let's wait for Kevin and then.
Yeah, so through your worship, the rate difference is in town's $2.19, I believe, and the bulk water rate's like $4.10. So it's just about double, not quite, but that's the difference.
And that's strictly the difference is just the infrastructure costs, right? That
Yeah,
you pay on your bill because
Yeah.
the $2 that you pay in town, that doesn't include the infrastructure
Yeah.
charges.
The intent of the bulk water rate, when it was developed, was to look at all those factors and ensure that you had an effective rate, that everybody was paying the same.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is just an oversight that we had for the last number of years, that we didn't make the connection on some of these historical water connections on the outside. It should have been changed back then, probably.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Earl?
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make is, from what I understand, the bulk water rate is higher because it accounts for the infrastructure fee that a resident would pay on their funds. So basically, it's hard to say how much less or more a bulk water user would pay because the way it's done is with the infrastructure fee blended into the usage, a high volume user will incrementally over time pay more because whereas in a resident of Dawson Creek, their infrastructure rate fee is cut off at it's 75, 80
So
for water, right?
Through your worship, now that I'm sitting here listening and thinking, the difference is because a bulk water user does not have a water meter.
Mm-hmm.
These individuals do have a water meter, so they will be paying an infrastructure charge. Now that I've walked my way all through this.
Okay.
So the current, or the building that was
Yeah.
sold, HF Nodes
Yeah, they'll be-
purchased, they'll
be
pay
paying
that?
infrastructure.
Oh, so they are paying the
They
same
will.
fee?
They will be now that. Yeah, I was. So
But what about the community of Poos? They don't pay the infrastructure. That's why their rates are higher.
that's right. Yeah. Sorry, we went down a long road there and maybe didn't need to.
Okay, I will make an amendment to my motion then and remove that last part because it wouldn't be needed, right? Because they're already paying.
They're paying the infrastructure charge. So there is equity in that sense that they're paying the same rate and they are paying the infrastructure charge. So I apologize for that I went down the different path.
That's fine. Tab, is that okay if I just amend that last part, or would you rather us defeat this?
No, if everybody is unanimously agrees to the amendment, then we don't.
I'm fine.
Is anybody? Okay, I will amend that last part, so it'll just be that we're in favor of moving forward with Brocor.
And just, I guess, one question. So the road we're talking about, that is the RD's road? Because he mentioned in the letter, Agro Regional District and us doing maintenance to it. Who owns that road?
Argo.
So through your worship, it's a ministry road now.
Okay.
At one time it was ours, but ministry took it over a number of years ago. So yeah, they've been, I know Brocor's been speaking with the ministry in Argo specifically about the road. We do have some drainage issues that originate from our site. And so that's why they've mentioned it in their request as well of dealing with that.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Thanks, Councillor Earl. Any other discussion? Councillor Parslow?
So in this somewhat convoluted discussion, which is, that's not a criticism, I'm trying to just to see if I'm understanding everything. So in your internal exploration of this issue, you put a few pieces together that were critical, and one of them was the fact that is this location, the existing location, the older location, metered. It is metered, and therefore they are paying infrastructure. Right. So are you saying then that this new property will be required to be metered? And if they are, then they will be paying infrastructure, right? And then we have consistent.
Yes.
So are you saying that the water in Poos Kupi is not metered?
from them?
No, so through your worship, that, I'm not saying that. So on the first 2 points, yes, they'll be metered. On the third one, yes, POOS is metered. But the inequity with that was the size of POOS's meter and the amount of water they used didn't translate into equitable cost. So it was negotiated with the village of POOS that they pay the bulk water rates.
So how, just going back to the Boric, the whatever the name is, the property in question, how does the provision of a meter mean that they are paying for the infrastructure? I don't follow that.
So the water rates bylaw specifically notes, dependent on the size of your water meter, is the infrastructure rate that you pay.
I see.
You good, Councillor Parslow?
I am really good on this particular property. I'm not so good on the Poos-Tupi, but that's another issue I don't wish to go to.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I will call this motion to vote. Vote is closed. It's carried. Kevin, I guess just on the second part of this, so would it be good to, because I know there's a policy about allowing water for out of city limits. So if we're allowing it here, like, is that worth giving the team direction to look at, like, the possibility how this could work if another business wanted to do it or a resident somewhere?
Yeah, through your worship, the policy needs to be updated. It's a relatively short policy and leaves a fair amount of open-ended questions, I think, and I think it should be looked at and in light of the current direction and just where it could be flushed out a little better.
So do you, like, is that something you want some direction?
Yeah, it'd be good to get a motion and we can add that to our policy list for sure.
What's the policy called? It's just the water.
Extension of municipal services.
Okay, I'll make that motion. I'll try to make another motion, see how this goes. That we direct the city team to look at the extension of water services policy. Have a second? Councillor Sudnick, any discussion? I'll call this to vote. Yeah. Can I hit it now? Okay. The vote's reopened.
Which one is this on? Is this?
What I just said. Tab just needed me to redo the vote. It's good. Vote is closed. It's carried.
Another issue. Issue related to this. So we learned that from staff's presentation that an extension to our boundaries was sought, and it was rejected. We note in this presentation today from Brocor that they're very willing to have the boundary extended. Are we at a better vantage point now with having two properties next to each other in pursuing a boundary extension?
Mm-hmm. So through your worship, the reason that we were given at the time of why it was not approved is because the boundaries were not contiguous. Essentially what we had is the city boundary and the new parcel were kind of kitty corner to each other as opposed to maybe adjacent. And so the ministry at that time said, no, this parcel coming in does not change that. And so we didn't feel it was any advantage for them to go through the process of applying to come into the city limits because there was no change from last time.
Sure.
Thank you, Councillor Parslow. Thanks, Kevin. And I don't think I missed anything. That was everything. Next 12, the Chief Administrative Officer Operational Update.
Thank you. So through your worship, a couple quick things. You'd mentioned in your mayor's update regarding the bike riders from Texas. And you mentioned a gentleman who'd fixed and tuned up other bikes. So that's one of our employees, Brian Farquhar, who does bikes for kids and fixes bikes, and they send them off to various parts of the world for children. Yeah, he took the time to do that. So just a shout out to him. That's great.
Perfect.
A couple other things. The BC Hydro chargers at NAR Park. I just wanted to say that so everybody can hear that it's BC Hydro chargers at NAR Park. It's not city. They should be coming online within the next couple of weeks. That'll be up to BC Hydro. Reclaim water sales. I wanted to let Council, I had a question from Councillor Earl on Friday. I looked into it. Water reclaim sales have been very good this year. We are currently at about $2 million in revenue, 6 months into the year. Last year we did 1.3 million all of 23. So it's been a combination of early in the year we had truck sales because we had water restrictions on, and then the second half or the second quarter's been Shell has been taking a fair amount of water, and then of course Shell is now paying where under the previous agreement they weren't in previous years. So of course that's reflecting on our revenue side. So all good news. I was just notified that the playground at the Mile Zero Park is open to the public, so another good news story.
There were 50 people around that facility on Sunday afternoon.
And we had some concerns brought to us last week about some drug paraphernalia being found in one of, I think it was the new playground at Ken Park. And there were some concerns over the fact that the city wouldn't do anything and that we didn't care. Couldn't be farther from the truth. We have bylaw staff that patrol through the parks every day. Now, of course, they're not going to catch everything, but they do. And if we're become aware of any of this, we do care, and we do have staff that will go out and deal with it appropriately. So contrary to what the Facebook world says, we actually do care, and we will respond and take care of that. Unfortunately, we can't be everywhere all the time, and even, something could happen after we're there. So we'll do our best to get there and deal with it. We understand the anxiety and the concern that this brings. So we will, our staff are on it, and we'll continue to be diligent and do what we can. Any questions?
I think just to add to that a little bit, I mean, similar to the RCMP, like the more eyes that we have in our community to help, the better. And the city team does an amazing job, and they're out there and they care. So it's just that, right? Another set of eyes. If you do see something that was missed or in a different area, there's avenues to notify the city, whether it's the app or calling. And and thanks for bringing up the gentleman's name with the bike. That's awesome. So
That's great.
yeah, does a lot of amazing things. One other thing too, just when I was at the car show, I forgot to mention that they did mention on how amazing the city was and the contractor to clean that corner up. So
Yeah, Kano did a lot of work to try and get that ready.
Yeah.
And Kyle was out there yesterday doing a few things, just assisting in a few areas too. So again, a shout out to Kano. They did a great job.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, it didn't go unnoticed. It was brought up to me that they were very happy.
And I should shout out too, we did have some staff out obviously helping, and of course Lloyd was out there from 5:30 in the morning until 5 o'clock last night, cleaning garbage barrels and whatnot. So again, shout out to Lloyd. He does a great job.
Thank you. Councillor Parslow?
Just one question to staff. We had a very good meeting, government to government, this last week. Things are going to proceed with an MOU. I'm wondering if we're going to have an opportunity as council to discuss some of that, of what we learned prior to, is there going to be an opportunity at next council meeting, or can that be discussed at some other time?
So I'm wondering if the appropriate time would be maybe when we get the draft MOU and bring it back. And we've really got the basis then to have that discussion, if that makes sense. You're wanting to have it in, obviously, in an open forum so everybody can hear about that, or thoughts?
To be honest, I'm not so sure if I do want it in open forum, because it's negotiation.
Yeah.
Right? So I was just wondering about in our meeting, just briefly, those that were attendant heard, what are they? Are we all on board? Are we all comfortable? Or do we have some areas of discomfort? Just so you're aware.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm just wondering about that.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? That was all you had, Kevin? Thank you. Next, 13 diary. I don't think there's anything in the diary. 14 consent calendar. Anyone want to lift anything from the consent calendar? Okay, I get a motion to accept the consent calendar. Councillor Sudnick, second Councillor Earl. I'll call that to vote. Somebody hasn't voted yet? This is to accept the consent calendar. That's me. Is it good now? Okay, it was me.
Just tell him.
I just wanted to,
He's a little slow.
I'm a little
His
slow.
style's not telling you how to vote.
Vote is closed. It's carried. I need you to start telling me to vote. All right, 15, any media questions? No media. 16, recess to close. 16.1, resolution to move into the meeting of council, closed to the public. Agenda items 4.1, 5.1, and 6.1, section 91K, negotiations and related discussions respecting the proposed provision of a municipal service that are at their preliminary stages. Agenda item 5.2, section 91C, labor relations or employee relations. Agenda item 4.2 and 6.2, section 91J, information that is prohibited or information that if were presented in a document would be prohibited from disclosure under section 21 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act. Councillor McDonald, second. Councillor Sudnick, I'll call that to vote. Vote is closed and carried.